Hey there everyone, it's me Jim. I just thought I should probably get around to making a video showing off some of the tricks that you can do in these games, both Serious Sam HD and first and second encounters, I should say. Um, Obviously some tricks are exclusive to one or the other, just depending on, well, in one factor, whether the enemy even exists in the game, and for another factor, just small engine differences between the two games. Even though they're both released on, I believe, the same engine, there's a few bug fixes and stuff between the first and second that cause at least one trick I can think of off the top of my head to no longer work. And since I know some people aren't going to want to watch both videos of my tutorial for both the speedrun of the first encounter and the second encounter, I figured I'd make it into a separate video so I could give some more detail on the individual tricks that you might want to be able to do. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is the first trick called bull surfing or bull riding or whatever you want to call it. Basically what you want to do is get on top of a bull so that it runs forward trying to hit you and you move faster because you're on top of it basically. The trick to setting this up is you kind of want it to be slightly above you on the terrain coming towards you. Although that's not always possible, but that's basically the only way you're going to get it to work, like this right here. Except I screwed it up. But yeah, once it gets near you at a certain distance like that, you want to jump backwards and keep holding back until you actually land on top of it. And then once you're on top of it, every so often you want to jump backwards like this, and just keep jumping backwards like that, and he won't knock you off until you hit like a higher terrain, like if you go uphill. And that prevents him from stopping and knocking you off. But when you do that, you need to make sure you're lined up with his body. Both that you're centered on him and your crosshair centered, so that when you jump backward you don't jump off at an angle. And here's the other trick with bulls, is that if you just stand on one of them against a corner like this and you time it so that you jump right like before they hit you, basically as soon as his head starts moving, you can jump super high and get up over walls like this. Yeah, and that's a really useful trick. One thing else I should mention is that when you're riding on a bull and you want to turn, say you're facing the wrong way, what you want to do is basically aim slightly to the left if you want to go right, or aim slightly to the right if you want to go left, like you're steering a boat basically. And it'll change the course of the bull just a little bit. Just make sure you're always centered with his head and everything will be fine. Okay, so this next trick only works in Serious Sam HD, the first encounter. I guess they patched it out in the second encounter, but it's called the Turbo Laser, and here's a scene in the game where you're in this arena section, and you have to fight a whole bunch of harpies, and basically the best way to do it is using the laser. I sped this up to 1.5 times speed just so that we don't have to sit here and watch the whole thing, but as you can see, it's pretty efficient. I mean, the only other weapon that's really good at this is like the Tommy gun or the minigun, which I'm pretty sure you don't have here at this point. But the laser definitely just rips right through them. But there's a way to do it even faster, and that's if you have your scroll wheel bound to shoot. You can shoot like this, which, as you can see, shoots a lot faster, and you'll see me clean these up pretty quickly once I start getting them to actually bunch up and get in a better position to hit them. What you want to be careful with when doing this is you want to make sure you don't use up all your ammo, because obviously since you're firing so fast, you go through your ammo really, really quickly, and that's a big danger that you need to look out for. Okay, so this is a trick called Harpy Flying, and it's kind of simple. All you need to do is get an Harpy like this. Basically jump so that it goes underneath you. Since it's coming towards you, it's not a problem. And to go up, all you have to do is bind jump to one of your scroll wheel directions and sort of jump forward normally with space, and then just a little bit, and then start scrolling really fast. And what will happen is the Narhead will come up behind you and underneath you. And since you're jumping really fast, it'll just keep following you up, basically, and pushing you slightly forward. Now, depending on how forward you jump at first, once you're on top of the head and you move forward to do the rising part, depends on, or it indicates how fast you'll be moving once you level off and basically stop scrolling. There's a way you can adjust it, which is that once you're moving in a certain direction, if you're centered with the head, you can jump forward just a little bit, and it'll change the speed that he's moving at underneath you. You'll basically adjust. If you don't do it right, he'll just stop, basically, or slow down sometimes, but You can just keep doing it until you get it right, but it's kind of dangerous because you're likely to fall off until you get until you really figure out exactly how much forward you need to jump to adjust your speed. Here's another thing you can do if you're standing on top of one of these in the air and you hold crouch. You can go down basically to lower yourself. And from there you can basically do the same thing you did at the start, which is jump forward and, you know, scroll wheel to go forward. But it's kind of hard, as you can see here. I had to quick save and reload once to actually get to work. Yeah, it's a pretty handy thing. It only comes in instance handy, like, I think twice in this game, once in second encounter, but it's still something good to know. This is a trick coming up that I didn't use in my speedrun, because I wasn't really sure about it. It involves basically being able to clip through geometry using a low FPS and falling from a height onto the geometry in question. Here's a roof that we need to go through. The exit to the level is right below it, but we can't get in because the door's closed. So what I do here is I lower my FPS artificially to around 20, and then I jump off like this. Basically what you want to do is just jump from a height onto this lower roof, and you'll see it. You basically just crouch right as you're about to hit it. That's the trick. And if you're lucky, you'll go right through the floor. It's really, how do I put this? It's very unreliable in my opinion. Like, it doesn't seem to work a lot. As you can see there, it failed. It depends on how low your FPS is, mostly. Like, the lower it is, the better chance you have of clipping through the floor, which is why normally if you're playing it above 100 FPS, which you kind of need to do things like Harpy Flying, it's not going to work out. But there you can see if I put it all the way really low, you can clip right through the floor like that. And this can obviously save a ton of time by skipping some arena segments, but again, it's kind of more like a segmented thing than a single segment speedrun trick. Okay, so here's another trick which I call clear boosting. This I wanted to show off on the last level of HD First Encounter, just because I figured that's the place where you get the most clear and it's really easy to see. There's a thing that clear do when they leap at you, and they can push you forward because they're leaping faster than you're moving, even if they're behind you and you're moving away from them. One clear pushing you doesn't affect your speed that much, but if a clear pushes another clear, which then speeds up that clear, and then that second clear also leaps, moving at a faster speed, then it's going to push you even harder. So if you get a ton of clear following you like I have here, and they all push each other like at once, they can give you some major speed boosts, because their speeds basically add up together. And you can use that to get over things like walls. With only one or two, you can get over some smaller walls. But there's this big wall here on the last level that you need a ton of clear to get up over, and you can see these boosts I'm getting off these sloped walls from the clear pushing me. Of course, in this specific instance, it helps to have less clear because they sort of get in each other's way. But 6 or 7 is like the best for this particular place, but this is just showing off the principle. With enough clear pushing you, you get enough speed that you can go over basically any wall. This is one of the highest walls that you have to climb. I think, well, it's the highest wall you have to climb in any HD speedrun, but there's definitely some smaller ones, especially in the second encounter that you use clear to get over. But here I clear out some of them to try to get a better chance of getting over this wall to show this off, but in the end it's pretty frustrating, and it's one of the really hardest tricks to do in, I'd say maybe it's the hardest trick to do in both HD games in terms of the speedrun, because it feels luck-based even though it really isn't, I don't think. It's just something you have to do over and over again until you really get like a feel for it, to jump right as they're leaping at you basically against these walls so that they push you up. But yeah, I eventually just got frustrated trying to show this off, and I just started blowing them all up because I was good. But anyway, yeah, that's the way that trick works, and it's really useful and it's needed a few times in speedrun, so it's good to learn. Okay, so this next trick is called Harpy Flying, and it's really useful, especially in HD second encounter. What you want to do basically is get on top of a harpy and ride her around. The trick to this is to stand against a wall and have her dive at you, and right as she's about to get to you, just jump so that you land on top of her. Then once you're on top of her and she's in the corner, you just move forward a little bit, and so that you're standing, you know, slightly on her lower back. At which point you just start scrolling your mouse wheel, which should be bound to jump. And as soon as she starts going up, you'll both go up at a really fast speed, and you'll see that right here. Once you're in the air, she'll start kicking you and moving you a little bit. When she kicks you, she also moves in that direction permanently, so if she's kicking you like once to the west, then your speed on her is 1 west, and if she kicks again, then it's 2 and 3 and 4. And then if she kicks north, you'll be 1 north, 4 west, if you get the idea. Also, when she kicks you, she moves you a little bit off center of her hitbox, so you need to readjust for that. But using this method, you can sort of move around at really high speeds, because the speeds just keep adding up the more she kicks you in a certain direction. The only thing you really have to worry about is if your FPS is low, sometimes she'll just magically fly off. So you need to watch out for that, and also even on Tourist, if she kicks you too much, you'll just die like this, which is something you have to look out for, but it isn't going to cause too much trouble. Another trick to do is that if you need to go straight up without her kicking you off to the sides, you just do the trick like normal, except you shoot her right before she starts rising with the double pistols like this, and you just keep shooting at this pace, and you'll see she goes straight up instead of to the sides. And that's especially useful in this room you see here, which is in the second level, because you can't go to the sides or you'll just bump into things and get knocked off. Also note, if you're jumping when she's coming at you, she'll usually just rise up and hit you, and that's no good since you need to go on top of her instead of her just smacking into you. And this is a glitch specifically with this room. I don't think it comes up anywhere else, but if you fall in the water when she's not in an attack animation, she'll basically get stuck in the water and not be able to fly. This is on another level, and it shows off the other, basically the opposite of going straight up on a Harpy, which is going straight down. It's especially useful on this particular level because it's basically the only place in the speedrun that you ever need to do it, but since you need to go straight down, what you can do is, if you're against a wall like this, you can stun her into stop kicking you around by shooting her like we just did, and then just crouch. And you have to make sure to stop crouching before she kicks again, otherwise it'll screw you up and you'll like fly off. But you can use that to get under this wall here and then jump back up through the geometry like this, and yeah, you're good to go. So that's it with the Harpies. Okay, so this is a trick involving these guys, which I always just call fishmen. I don't know what they actually are named, I always forget, but they have the double rocket launchers, these guys right here. If you jump right when they're about to hit you, they'll smack you really hard and really far through the air like this. Depending on how many there are, say if there's like more next to each other and they all hit you at the same time, their force adds up together. So you can get some really heavy boosts. Also note that if you're on top of a gnar or something when you do the jump, you'll get extra height, so you can get over higher walls from the fish guys hitting you. But yeah, they're pretty simple. I mean, it's just a matter of applying the physics of their hits to going through the air really fast. And like I said, it does definitely help to have more of them next to each other, since their force is additive, as you'll see just in a second. One thing to note is, as you can see here, the enemies are pushing behind him and actually moving him forward faster than he can normally walk. And you can use that to sort of speed up how fast they move if you need to get them to somewhere in particular. Note that there's also a certain amount of these in the game that have no movement AI and will just stand still no matter what. So you can't draw them like that. But yeah, there's 2 of them hitting me at once, and you can see how far it pushes you. Which is to say really far, like that. So yeah, I mean, that's a really simple thing with these guys, but it's also really, really useful to getting over walls and covering long distances in a hurry. This trick here isn't really much of a trick, but it's really important to do some certain things in this game. Basically, it's just an application of the physics in this game. If you're moving on a surface, no matter how fast you're moving, if you hit the crouch key, like all you have to do is tap it, you'll lose all your momentum instantly. You might not think that's very useful, but there's a few places in the game where it's extremely useful. Say if you're wanting to land on top of a small roof and you are going really fast and you might slide off the other end, you can use this to basically stop your momentum from sliding away. There's a few places in the speedrun where that's actually useful. And as you can see here, I'm moving really fast, but I just tap crouch and I instantly stop. So that's a really handy trick, and for some reason it just took me a really long time to come up with it. And I felt really smart whenever I finally did. even though it's a really obvious thing in this game, but it's something that it might not be immediately apparent to a lot of people, so I thought I'd mention it here. Okay, well that's it. That should be just about everything. I hope this video really helped you understand a little bit more about the tricks and how they're done, as opposed to just the other videos that I did, the tutorial videos. It showed off more of the route. I know some of the tricks in this game can be difficult, and it's never a good thing whenever you have to use a tutorial that doesn't really explain how to do the tricks and just shows them. So yeah, hopefully I did a good enough job of explaining everything, and if there was something that I forgot to cover, or something you think I didn't explain well enough, just leave a comment in, well, the comments, and I'll get back to you on that. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.